Hello, Eric, my love. I love you. And hello, Jennifer. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Eric says hello. I love you.
Aw. So we're going to cover a couple of things today. I kind of, uh, in this session, we're going to talk about biorhythms. So I don't even have any questions prepared, but I think it's really weird how cool how it works. So can you talk about that, Eric?
Okay. So basically, do you want to? I'm sorry. Do you want to have questions for this? Do you want to wait until there's questions?
Oh,
I
no,
might
no, no.
want to.
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
I
If
mean,
you want to have
sometimes
questions for it.
questions, sometimes questions will come up
Yeah.
as, yeah.
Yeah. So the biorhythm is basically like the rhythms in your body, the energy in your body is what he's saying. It's like the intellect, the emotion, the health. It's it's kind of like what he's saying is it's kind of like a wavelength. Like you don't really see it
Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
visibly see it, but you can see the effects of like biorhythms being off or out of sync.
Yeah.
And it's just really what keeps you healthy. Like the biorhythms are kind of how to keep track of your health.
Well, should
Uh,
we check it every day then?
well, okay. So what he's saying is like I guess that there are ways to check your biorhythms. I don't really know a whole lot about biorhythms, but I guess he's saying that there's ways to check them. There must be like machines or something that kind of measure biorhythms.
Yeah, like here's one that is a biorhythm calculator. All right, I'm going to put in my birth date and see why
Okay.
I feel so off today. Oh, no, 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 no. Okay, that's good. 21. Let's see what happens. Okay. Execute. It says execute. It's so funny. All right, so there are my biorhythms. Physical is blue, emotional is red, intellect is green. I'm sure there's more complicated things than that. So
Yeah.
on this day, um, my physical is below the line, and the intellectual is up there, more, and then the emotional is high up there. So what does that mean
Yeah.
for? What does that mean, Eric? Well, what I just
Well, it
did.
may explain the physical feelings that you're having today.
Oh
The
yeah,
lower energy.
yeah.
So he is saying that there are more like complex ways to check this, but it's not something you need to check every day because you don't want. For some people, it would make them be like, oh well, my physical health is low today, and it could put thoughts and stuff into their
Oh
mind
yeah.
that would make them,
But
have
maybe
a
if you're
worse day
feeling
than they need
off
to
in
be.
some way, you could check, oh, okay, that's fine. It'll be better
Yeah.
in 2 days.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So yeah, he says it's a good idea to have an understanding of your biorhythms. um, they are affected by external factors in your life. Your emotional, your partner, you're fighting, you're having some health issues. It will affect the biorhythms.
Oh, okay.
um, he says it's like the tides with the ocean. It's a lot of things can affect your biorhythms.
Okay.
But he's saying it's connected to like your
Oh, no.
um,
Had to be spam risk. Oh, sorry.
yes.
Forgot to mute
Oh
myself.
no, you're fine. Like it's connected to like your aura, your energy field. These things are all connected.
So
Um,
how does it work? How can you generate a graph? I mean, a graph measures something. What is it measuring?
okay. He says it's really kind of measuring. It's more on the energetic field that it's measuring. Um, Measuring your health, your physical health, your emotional state, your intellectual. It's like it's more of an energetic field. Give me just a second with that. Um, it's okay. Okay. So what he's saying is it's like if you know like chi energy that flows through the body like on the
Okay.
pathways.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's like similar to that. It's like it's energy, but you can find it, you can track it, you can trace it in the
Oh,
body, like you can with the chi energy.
yeah.
He says there's some similarities between the two concepts
Okay.
with those. He says not everybody believes that you can really track your biorhythms, and that it's kind of controversial, I guess.
Okay.
Um,
Well, is it true?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yes,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yes. He says there's a lot of stuff that's controversial that's true. Uh,
Yeah.
he's also talking about a mat, like a biorhythm mat. I don't
Oh,
know. Is there
wow. What
like
is that, Eric?
um what he's showing me is like it's like feels like a thin mat that you put down and you kind of lay on it, and it helps to like um regulate your biorhythms.
Oh, yeah, because maybe on December 11th, I'm supposed to have those biorhythms, but there's other things like maybe what I ate yesterday or whatever that can influence each of those three tracks. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, because um really like that would just be an overview of what your biorhythms should be today.
Ah,
So it's like there's he's equating it to like your astrology chart.
okay.
Like what your astrology says for you today, it's general for you, but maybe not be specific for what you're actually going through in your life. So based on what we're actually going through in our life can affect the biorhythm. So not everybody that was born on your birth date is having the same type of day.
Oh, yeah. So
Okay.
obviously, external energy, like external thoughts or whatever, anything can influence the frequency of those
Mhm.
three tracks. Now, is it,
Yes.
do they have separate frequencies?
Yes.
One for
Frequency. That
intellect,
is
one
an
for,
excellent word. Yes.
okay,
Yes. There's different frequencies um, for all three.
okay.
That was the word he was trying to give me. I just couldn't get it. So you know me.
Oh,
Sometimes I
I know, me
see the word
too.
and I just can't. Like what is the word? Frequency. Yes, they are all on different frequencies.
Okay,
Um,
why the birth date? What does that have to do with anything? Obviously, same thing with horoscopes or
yeah,
astrological.
there's a connection. There's a connection um, to that, to the stars, to the alignment of the planets affecting our biorhythms based on when we were born. It's the
Oh, okay.
similar effect,
Yeah.
the similar effect that the astrological chart has.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so they say when it crosses this line, anything like this big blue line, like
Okay.
here I have two that cross. It's called critical. Um, what exactly does that mean? Is that worse than being real low? Is it like something could happen? I'm vulnerable to having an effect on that particular track?
Okay. So what Erik is saying about that is that critical is sort of like a bit of an intense word
Oh, okay.
use for it. Okay. Um, if you take critical into the medical field, that's a bad
I
thing.
know, yeah.
Oh, so he said that's kind of an intense word for what's happening. What he's saying is it's kind of like like with anything, you're looking if you look at a bell curve,
Yeah.
you're kind of looking to be, most people are right here. This is kind of where you're looking to be. This is where like the norm is. He says critical puts you more out on the
Outliers.
yeah outliers. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
why is it the midpoint of a sine wave? What does that have to do with anything?
It's really a bad word.
Well, what would you call it, Eric? Call it something
Um,
different.
yeah, it's like critical. He's like critical is not a good word for it. It seems too intense, too scary.
Yeah.
Um, what he says is like when you see it there, I guess that midline is sort of where you
Yeah.
want to be. That
Oh, so okay, so is that where it crosses the midpoint? Well, what would you call it, Eric?
I'm saying, give me a better word than critical. Um,
Midpoint? I don't know.
yeah, it's not critical. He'll give it to me.
Okay.
He'll give me a better word for it, but it's sort of like you just want to observe this. Like you want to pay attention to this. if you're really into your biorhythms and you have something that comes up as critical, if it's critical in the health biorhythm, well, then you might want to kind of check in with your body and
Mm.
see what's, going on. But critical's too intense for most people. If you're
What
too
about
minimal as
vulnerability
a
point
person,
or
yeah,
something like that? I mean, like, okay, physically, I kind of better watch. I don't want to, stumble downstairs, or I mean, at a little bit
yeah.
at risk of.
Yeah, so what he's just given me an example of, like, if you were on the intellectual biorhythm and you were at a point and it was saying critical, he said what that would look like for intellectual is maybe you're trying to really solve an issue, or you're overthinking something, and you can't get out of your head, and you're trying, and it's creating stress. There's
Okay,
something there that's creating stress. So if you saw a critical on the intellectual, you might want to look and be like, okay, what am I doing in my head that could be putting me into a critical spot? And then you could balance that out by taking some deep breaths, trying to shift your energy off of that. Um, he says, like, if we're having health wise, you just got an infection, a UTI, that might put you in the critical area where it's like, okay, pay attention, what's going on in my body, is something off in my body? So it's really
okay.
not so much critical as it is like,
Just
hey,
be
look at
aware,
what's
observe.
going on here.
All right. So if you're critical intellectual and you have a test that day, is that what
That
is?
just, he says that could just be situational. It's just situational. You're stressed about the test, you're studying. So that's not something maybe that the next day would still be there, would still
Yeah,
be critical in the biorhythm for intellect.
but it is fixed. Like on this day, I am going to have a critical on intellect, and I have a test today. What would the person just be aware of?
um okay, again, be just aware, because you can have a test and you can be stressed out, but that's not going to make you do any better on the test.
Right. So are
So
you saying being
pay,
critical on intellect will make you feel more, you're vulnerable to stress over intellect related things?
yeah, there would be, yes, there'd be a combination, yeah, like a correlation between the critical and intellect and overthinking or
I gotcha.
worrying, or trying to, solve a problem that maybe is not solvable at the
Mm.
moment, um, and so sometimes we, all of us drive ourselves nuts trying to
I know I
force
do.
a solution to something
I
that the solution's
I
not
know.
there
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. All right. So what about being critical in the emotional chart?
Yeah. Okay. So
Talk about that
he
because I got
started
2 points coming up.
he got started talking about that, um, and like during a breakup, during, a loss of a loved one, that could cause critical, emotional stuff,
So if
depression.
if that happens on a day where it's critical, then you have to watch not to overreact, not to really get yourself into things like that.
Yeah,
So
and
try to
so
raise your vibration in various ways.
he's also saying, like, if you're prone to depression and you can see a critical point coming up on the emotions, that might be a harder day to deal with the depression.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
um there'd be that kind of thing where maybe it's like days that are critical in these areas, you're more susceptible to issues, you know he said,
Okay.
like, if
You
you
can
were
get
having,
overly emotional to certain situations,
yeah, and he
right?
says, like, if you were having a critical health day and you're really okay, well, maybe you sprain your ankle, or you
Yeah.
it's like you're just a little more prone to something. um
So it's a
Again,
vulnerability point, I would call it then.
yes, we've all had those days, he says,
Yeah.
like, where you get up and you bang your hand on this and you jam your finger and bump your shin, and it's like, what is happening?
Mm,
He says that can the biorhythms can affect that, make us a
wow.
little clumsier, make us a little,
All right.
uh,
Well, let's talk about the low points. So how does that differ? Like if you're low on the emotional, like right here with the red, how does that differ from being critical?
okay.
Uh,
So what Eric was saying to me is that that would be like a numbness, like a disconnect.
Oh, okay.
Like there's, there's extremes. There's extremes, and again, we don't mostly live in the extremes. We mostly live
No, yeah.
in that, that's why critical. He's like critical is more appropriate for like the,
Okay, right.
the real peaks, but like a real low on the emotions would be like a numbness, like
Okay.
just
And
I don't.
if
Oh, go
I
ahead.
don't care, apathy. So
Yeah.
what if you look and you see and you agree with the um, that you're numb? What can you do if you hit a low on the emotional biorhythm?
Um. Well, so what he's saying is that the biorhythm,
Oh
it's
no, God.
it's he's saying the biorhythm
Oh,
will.
I have to pause. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The light. Just a minute. I knew that would happen. The bill for the tree lights. Okay. All right. So what do you do if you're at the numb state? What can you do to resolve that?
Um. So there are, what Eric is saying is that there are a lot of treatments that you can do to kind of boost your biorhythms, but balancing your energy, meditation, these are all things that help with it. But he says sometimes the biorhythms just naturally shift from low to high. They're just going to.
Okay.
So sometimes if it is only the biorhythm affecting your day and not your, not like some other kind of issue,
Yeah.
and it will pass. We all have a bad day,
Yeah.
and there's really no rhyme or reason to it. He said that's more like a biorhythm low is like that, just that kind of crappy day. Um,
Okay. I'm
uh,
looking to see if there's any time where it's in, I'm going to ask you about when they're all waves are in sync. But all right. So you can just find ways to elevate your frequency, like listening to
yes,
fun music, dancing, the samba in the
yes,
kitchen, whatever.
yeah.
So
And I, again, back to that biorhythm, Matt. Eric is telling me that there's treatments. There's like
yeah,
there's certain type of therapies to work with your biorhythms.
can we do that
Um,
ourselves? Like get one on Amazon Prime?
um, yeah, yeah, we can help our biorhythms ourselves without any therapies and treatments. But he's telling me that there are therapies and treatments for biorhythms,
Oh,
and
okay,
there's got
interesting.
to be a mat of some sort. There's
Yeah,
got
well,
to be a
I'll look at it.
biorhythm
I'll
mat.
look at it. It's probably on Amazon. Everything else, you probably get a bride
Yeah,
order wife
yeah,
in Amazon. Okay,
probably.
so what about emotional high? What tell me about when it's high up in the red,
Um,
like touching the top there.
yeah, he says that's like elation, elated.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So nothing should do about that because that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that would be like the opposite, the opposite of the numb is like that elation, the
Okay.
excitement, the
Engaged
hope,
emotionally.
just like you can kind of unstoppable, you can do anything.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah,
So
so he
what
so
about
he
if I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, he's equating it to kind of being like manic.
Okay.
But not in a bad way. That word has maybe sometimes a negative connotation,
Oh
but
yeah. But
not in a bad way.
nothing to do for that because we want that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what about let's go to physical. If you're physically at the low, I know we talked about critical that you're physically vulnerable, but if you're like here at the
At,
low
at the
on the
lowest
blue,
health. Um, okay. So sometimes it can be that you're actually having major health problems. So your biorhythm's low, if you're battling cancer,
yeah.
stuff like this. But what he says also, when your health biorhythm is low, like you're more susceptible to illness,
Okay.
um, and that sort of thing when you're kind of on the low. It's like think of it like as your immune system's kind of lowered.
Oh, okay.
Um,
But it's not like you have cancer, it will lower the physical biorhythm. It's the opposite, right? I mean, if the blue is all the way to the bottom, then going to be just like that day you're physically going to be fatigued,
Yes,
weak.
yes,
So that's how
yes,
it differs from the
exactly.
critical.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
yes.
You might feel
Fatigue.
bad.
Yeah, I just can't get it going. I feel like I'm gonna get sick, but then you don't get sick. He says
Okay.
those are some of the experiences that you can feel on with the low.
Okay. Whereas the critical point for physical, you're vulnerable. Yeah, there's increased
Yes.
risk. Okay, gotcha. All right. So what should we do if we are at the low for the blue physical curve?
He really does say sometimes you just ride it out. You just wait.
Okay.
The next
Yeah.
day will be the next day will be different.
Yeah.
Um, if you're not doing stuff to take care of your health, that might be a day that it's like, okay, maybe I will go for a walk. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I will go take a walk and kind of boost my
Okay.
serotonin and that sort of thing.
Oh, good. Go
Yeah.
running so you get the
Yeah.
endorphins up. Ugh, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
I don't like to hear the sound of my own panting when I exercise.
Uh,
It's exhausting. All right, so the high physical, it's like, yeah, I feel like Superwoman,
yes.
that kind of thing,
Yes.
and you don't want to change
Unstoppable.
that.
Yeah. Yes. He
All right,
said he says as humans as you get older you have less and less of those like days.
hey, you're preaching to the choir here. I
Or
know.
actually, so what he's saying actually is that the high of those days isn't as high as it was like in your 20s. Like
Oh
in
yeah, I
your 20s
believe
you
that.
reach those high peaks, but it doesn't
Interesting,
feel the same way.
interesting, and eventually, sheesh, they petered down
Yeah,
to
that's
nothing,
yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
dead. Um.
Yes.
All right, so what about? Let's go to the What is the uh, do we already do the okay? The low point on the intellectual. That means you're dumb as a sack of hammers. Is that it
No.
on that day?
No. No, not necessarily. So he says it could look more like messing stuff up, or you make more mistakes if you're say writing or something, you make more just like ridiculous mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
this sort of thing. You get lost, you make the wrong turn. He
Yeah,
says there's like confusion is one of
yeah.
the
That's
big
how I
things.
feel today. I swear.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what do you do in that case? Don't drive heavy.
Yeah,
To drive
yeah,
machinery or something.
yeah. He says really with that, with the intellect one, it, it's like you won't have as much focus. There's not as much focus. And again, there's like you could just ride it out because the next day might be different. You can do some stuff to clear your head,
Like what?
focus on your breathing. Um,
Breath work. Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good one because especially when you're in that kind of state, if you try to focus on something else, like if you try to focus on somebody's talking or this, you're
Yeah.
going to wander off. But if you focus on your breath, that's the easiest one to kind of focus on to get your attention. And if you're having a day like that, maybe just put your stuff down that you're trying to work on that you keep messing up or feel confused or getting turned around. Maybe you just put it down,
Yeah.
for the day.
Okay. What about when you're at the very high? I don't think I've gotten there for a long time. If you're at the top with the green line, I think it's a green. Yeah.
That's interesting. He's saying it's kind of like there's something about that. Like if I don't know why we're talking about writers, but if you're a writer, that would be like when information is just coming in. There's almost like a feeling of channeling information.
Oh, does that occur when it's at the top? You seem
Um,
to be
yeah,
uploading or whatever,
yeah.
uploading information from source.
Eric is saying that it does, like especially with the intellectual high.
Hmm.
Like you're so open up here that just information just is flowing, flowing,
Yeah.
flowing, flowing. Um, so these are again, if you're a writer, I don't know why we're talking about writers today. If you're a
Oh,
writer,
because you
those are
don't
the
want writer's block, probably.
yeah, those are the days that you get a lot of work done. You write a lot of
Yeah.
chapters, write a lot of
In
pages,
the
that kind of
zone.
thing.
All right. So
Yes.
let's talk about the chakra. So at the top of the intellect, your crown chakra probably changes is more open,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
heart chakra and the emotional when you're at so
Yeah.
this correlates with chakra health too, right?
It does. Although what he says is like the health. So yes, the intellectual corresponds kind of more to the crown, and the emotion is more to to the heart and the throat.
Oh.
He's saying, but the health, he says, boom, that's all of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it more heavily root or sacral or
Um,
not?
no, what he's saying is because you can you can be emotionally unbalanced or intellectually having an off day, and it does not affect your physical health,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. But when your physical health is bad, even if you just have one bad day where you're in a lot of pain, it almost immediately affects your emotion and your intellect.
Oh, wow. Well, that
um
makes sense.
yeah, yeah, so the health one kind of, he just does boom over the whole body.
Okay. So if I look at my biorhythms and I see that the emotional one is low, what does my heart and throat chakra look like? Is it more closed off? Is it not spinning in the right direction?
Yeah, so yes, when chakras are kind of out of balance, they can either be too big, okay, too big and kind of not have a firm, solid shape. If your chakra is really imbalanced, it has a firm, solid,
Mm,
circular shape with kind of a definition. Too
okay.
open is not a good thing, and it's hazy at the edges, and it's not
Oh,
got that firm circle shape. So you don't want too big, but you also don't want too little. The chakras, when you're closed off, they get very little. The circle gets much smaller. Usually keeps a more defined kind of energy, but it's littler. Um, so when you're having a very emotional day, the heart chakra could be too open or it
okay.
could be little.
So
Okay.
either way, what about when it's critical? Is it what do the chakras look
Again,
like?
it could be too big or too
Ah,
little.
okay. Okay. So
But
that's not a big
critical,
difference. Yeah.
right? Yeah, critical is always going to look either too big or too little, depending on what you're. If you're um okay, if you're completely balanced, if everything is right where it's supposed to be, all the chakras are going to look boom, 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 exactly like they're supposed to. He says almost nobody usually looks like that. there's
Oh,
always
yeah.
there's always something
Yeah.
going on. And the throat one is a big one. um with the he's saying, like, if you're critical in the emotional, sometimes you'll get the irritation in your throat, or you'll lose your voice, or your voice will feel weak. That's how sometimes you can tell that maybe the emotional biorhythm is off.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So, would just balancing and cleaning all the chakras, if you notice that you're low on something or critical on one of these three waves, would that help?
Yeah, yeah. So all of these things, just because if you look at your biorhythms and it looks like you're going to have an emotionally low day, it doesn't mean you have to. There still
Mm,
is free will involved here.
yeah.
Okay. So I guess maybe if you're still measuring the biorhythm might still be low, but maybe you can combat the effects of it so you don't feel it as much.
I see.
So it's not like he says it's not really something to live your day-to-day life by. If you wake up and you're feeling great, and everything feels wonderful, but you look and you're having an emotionally low biorhythm day,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, go with how you feel, not with what the biorhythm is saying for the
Oh, of
day.
course.
uh, because he says really and truly the measurement of biorhythms isn't,
No, it's just
uh,
a base, like a foundation,
yes,
and free
yes,
will can
yes,
circumvent all of that.
exactly.
What about
Exactly.
if your biorhythm shows that you're real high up in intellect, but you're just feeling really foggy? Why?
Yeah. So that he said what what we're doing is looking at just the biorhythms, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
never the only thing that's
yeah,
affecting a
of
person. So if you're
course.
having a day where your biorhythm is really high intellectually and you're very foggy, well, he says Maybe you're getting a cold. Maybe you have a sinus infection. Maybe you've got too much yeast in your body and it's giving you the
Yeah.
cloudy, so it's like, again, this is one way to kind of measure ourselves,
Okay.
but it's really better to look at the whole picture.
Yeah. So it's a good way
Um,
to just take inventory of how
yeah,
you feel, etc., emotionally,
yes,
intellectually, and so on.
yes,
I got one more
exactly.
question.
Especially for those times you can't explain it. You
Yeah.
know, if you can't explain why something's happening, like, why am I feeling like this? Well, you might get an answer there. You
Yeah.
also might get an answer in astrology and the way the planets are lined up.
So it's just kind
Um,
of a confirmation tool.
yes, yes.
All right. I have one more question. Um, what happens? What does it mean, or is there any significance to when all three of the waves are perfectly aligned?
Aligned. Um, yeah, what he's saying to me is that well, it's not happened a lot. It doesn't happen a lot that they're all aligned like that.
Okay.
Um, but he's saying energetically, that's kind of a good thing, like the whole mind, body, spirit being sort of one.
Uh huh.
So he's okay. What he says is on days like this, you might have like solve a problem. Stuff might come to you. Stuff
Okay.
just kind of clicks into place and works out. It's like,
And so, is that a good place to be? Not all of it aligned.
yeah, yeah. It's not a bad place to be. Of course, if they're all low,
I know.
you might be, might be having a pretty rough time.
Oh yeah. What
But
about
yeah,
if they're all crossing the midpoint, that vulnerable spot, then that is not
yeah,
necessarily good. Okay.
yes.
Do you have any other questions, Jennifer?
No, I don't have any.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Eric and Jennifer. I love you both. You guys check out
Yeah.
Jennifer at psychicmediumjenniferdorn.com, which I will put right here. Hit the subscribe button, peeps. Thank you.